USA Ultimate is proud to present the 2013 USA Ultimate National Championships. And this Saturday afternoon, as we get going, mixed semifinal number 1, it's Minneapolis Drag'N Thrust against Boston the Ghosts from Frisco Memorial Stadium in Frisco, Texas. A peek at the bracket to see where these two teams hope to be headed. They're looking to play tomorrow at noon for a championship. And it's Minneapolis and Boston in game number 1, San Francisco, Boston in game number 2 at 2 Eastern. All teams out of the powerhouse regions across the country for Ultimate. We're glad to have you with us. Mike Cousins and Evan Lepler, a former Ultimate captain at Wake Forest. With these two teams, when it comes to preparation and how they arrived here in Frisco, you really couldn't look at more different routes.
Well, one team is very old and experienced. That's Boston, a group of former coaches, current coaches, people who have been playing Ultimate for a very long time. They've come together at tournaments to create a championship caliber team. Then you have Drag'N Thrust, the younger group that's still looking to rise in the mixed division. They're in their second straight year in the semi, trying to get to the finals for the first time.
And Drag'N Thrust, a little bit of a peek at that team, founded in 2009. Their head coach, Jake Henderson, a former player. 4 ACL surgeries later, 3 on one knee, 1 on the other. He's on the sideline. But what they look forward to on the field is the ultra-athletic play of James Hron.
You know, both these teams can't be simplified by one player, but James Hron will be the main deep threat for Minneapolis Drag'N Thrust. He was second in the team in goals in pool play in the pre-quarters and quarters, but the Drag'N Thrust squad without their leading goal scorer, Jordan Hupp, so they'll be relying on Hron to pick up the pace.
Boston, a little bit of a newer team, just founded in 2011 under head coach Jason Adams. Great in their regionals, and they look to Jeff Graham, a player with a lot of playing and coaching experience.
Well, this entire team has tons of experience. Jeff Graham, really the top of the class. Nobody in the mixed division had double-digit goals and assists during pool play, pre-quarters and quarters, but Jeff Graham obviously came pretty close. An experienced veteran in the club scene, a deep threat. He'll try to lead him to the championship game.
Youth and experience, Minneapolis and Boston. And first pull in the mixed semifinals is coming up next from Frisco, Texas. Welcome to the USA Ultimate National Championships, the third and final leg of the Triple Crown Tour, Ultimate's highest level of competition. Everyone's invited. The USA Ultimate National Championships are presented by the Discraft UltraStar 175 Sport Disc, the official championship disc of USA Ultimate since 1991. USA Ultimate, the national governing body for the sport of Ultimate in the United States. To find out more about the sport of Ultimate or where to play in your community, visit www.usaultimate.org. Welcome back to beautiful Frisco, Texas. Glad to have you along, Evan Lepler and Mike Cousins. Mixed semifinal number 1 as we get set for Minneapolis, Drag'N Thrust, and the Ghosts out of Boston. A beautiful day here at Frisco ISD Memorial Stadium. A set with the starting lineups. Minneapolis, you see their cutting line there. James Hron will be one to keep an eye on. Trosvig, Bakken, and Lean along the handling line for Minneapolis under head coach Jake Henderson. Now over on the other side for Boston under Jason Adams, Moores, Graham, Horowitz, and Cobbett, their 4 cutters. Burrows, Faust, and Lightbody, the 3 handlers. Well, Evan, as we get set here for this first mixed semifinal, we welcome in, of course, many veterans of the Ultimate community, but for those new, what do you need to know about the sport of Ultimate?
Well, obviously it's 7-on-7. At this level, most teams will have a separate offensive line and defensive line, so the Ghosts on offense first, they'll get the disc. Halftime arrives when the first team gets to 8. Obviously the disc can be advanced in any direction, and once a player catches the disc, they set a pivot foot and then have 10 seconds to throw. The game self-officiated, but there are 4 observers, and we have the observers mic'd up, so we'll get a glimpse into the observer conversation as the afternoon progresses.
And no time. So it's first to 8 that takes half, and for our opening pull, it'll be Boston to fire away downfield.
We'll begin the game on defense.
So it'll be Drag'N Thrust beginning on offense. My mistake.
Drag'N Thrust to receive in the west.
John Hirschberger, the opening pull, and mixed semifinal number 1 here at Frisco is underway. Drag'N Thrust with possession.
And immediately a glimpse into 2 of the more colorful jerseys in the mixed division.
That's part of the fun, though, of Ultimate is so many different designs, so many different themes, along with great names for these teams as well. Look for a first score that hangs high. And the toss just a little bit too long. And out of the reach of Jamie Glader.
Jamie Glader, a key deep threat for this Drag'N Thrust team. Don't be confused by the fact that she's only 5'1". You can see the acceleration toward the end zone. Great layout bid, but just out of her reach.
Vertical stack to start here for the Ghosts.
Foul call.
Go, Pat Nile. Hey, let's be ready for it. Yeah, ready?
Patty, you're ready.
Be working, Maddie. Be working.
I know it. Know what you want to do first.
It happened like
Right in on the play. In between the two players is Mitch Dengler along on this squad. Julie Morris, Wally Kwong, Andrew Biermeyer, and Stephen Hubbard.
No contest on that foul. The stall count reset to 0. There's a nice break. The team from Minneapolis forcing backhand. And keep in mind, this is the offensive line from Drag'N Thrust in Minneapolis against the defensive line of Boston, but Boston's defense turns it over, and Minneapolis with a chance to hold serve on the first point.
That was dropped by Jess Blanton. She lives in California, so hasn't had much experience with this team. And the first goal goes to Minneapolis as they get the score off the turn. And it's Minneapolis in front. Jeff Trosvig hauling it in.
Well, Jeff Trosvig, often known more for his throws. He's got a flick that's as hard and as quick as anybody in the game, but a nice little upline cut to break the scoring seal today. Minneapolis capitalizing on the drop from Blanton.
You know, we go back to Jess Blanton, who went to Amherst College and played for Lady Godiva, but now lives out in California. It's her first tourney with Boston this year. It's a very interesting mix, and in talking to Jeff Graham, one of the captains of this team, the way that they're assembled, we talked about it a little bit right off the top of the broadcast, but their practices, if you will, their regimen is not quite as tough as maybe some teams at the men's or women's division.
Well, a lot of teams will practice 3-4 times every single week in preparation for nationals, but the Ghosts a different story. They communicate during the week via emails, discuss strategy, discuss game plans, and then when it comes to tourney time throughout the season, that's when they really tinker and figure out what works and what doesn't work. And for a lot of teams, you wouldn't be able to do that. But because of the experience and the institutional memory, 6 different players on this Ghost team have coaching experience. Tim Cobbett coaches Boston University. Beth Nakamura has spent some time coaching at BU, her alma mater. Then Jeff Graham, Ben Faust,
Out of bounds on the pole.
Courtney Moores. Really just a plethora of ultimate knowledge that they bring together on Saturdays and Sundays trying to win championships.
Off that pull out of bounds, it'll go out to the brick mark at the 35-yard line here on this football field. Now deep puck right off the pull. And the catch is made, and a score for Boston.
It's a great throw by Misha Horowitz on a set play off the pull, looking deep for Ben Faust, former George Washington player, and has really played all over the club scene for Metal and Ironside, Pony.
Horowitz with a big push to the
He had a
end
step on his defender,
zone.
David
Foul
Shirley,
brings it in for the Ghost
and a
score.
nice smooth flick.
That's Ghost 1.
That's
Dragon
sort of the
1.
optimal height for a flick huck, because you don't want it to get too high, because then it'll float too much and give the defense a chance to get there. But that's a nice, tight, good rotation throw, and able to haul it in Faust to even things up at 1.
Evan, I know you were down on the field prior to first pull in this game, and you said that the wind is going to be a little bit different here maybe than it was the last 2 days for these players.
Well, absolutely very different from the last 2 days, but it might be different from anything that these two teams have ever seen. Both end zones are really wide open, and this field is sort of elevated above a parking lot on one side and another field on the other side. So because we're higher up, there really is more wind. You can see the flags whistling. Now, the sidelines are somewhat blocked by the stands. That's going to create some really interesting wind tunnels. And the other thing to note about field conditions is the fact that this is a true field turf situation, and most of these teams have spent the weekend playing on grass, so just a different feel in terms of cutting on the artificial turf.
One flick to match another. That hangs high. And the score is good for Drag'N Thrust. Downfield to James Hron.
Well, both these teams like to shoot it deep, Mike. And James Hron looks like a tight end out there. You know, it's appropriate that on the weekend Rob Gronkowski is coming back to the New England Patriots. James Hron's on ESPN 2. Had a step on his defender and a great job attacking the disc at the highest point. Brian Stout, a pretty good defender himself. Stout actually has an inch or two on Hron, but Hron had a step and he has the score.
Well, it's funny you make that comparison to an NFL tight end because Hron is a former tight end, former basketball player, and they say that he's great at using his body to create space. At 6'3", pretty big when you compare him to whether it's the men's division or the mixed division. Maybe the tallest we'll see is 6'6", so he's up there to the right side of the bell curve.
And it's not just his height, certainly it helps, but on any team he'll play on, he's a featured guy. They design a one-throw play right off the bat to hit him in the end zone. Well, this Drag'N Thrust team was the 8th seed out of 16 coming into the tournament, but had a huge set of universe point victories in pool play. Winning with a tie score, a double game point. They beat Odyssey, the U.S. Open champions, and then knocked off AMP, the #1 overall seed coming into this tournament. You know, they've done it in close games, which really should serve them well heading into the semis and perhaps the finals.
Talking to Austin Lean yesterday, he said, you know, he made a point of saying we were okay with being close to AMP because we know that they came in with a great seed and we wanted to be in their pool. We wanted to be challenged.
That was the cardiac pool on Thursday. A bunch of universe point games, and you know, Odyssey came into this tournament seeded low too and made an impact. There's a nice upline cut, and after back-to-back deep throws, the Ghosts just play it short this time, right up the field to even things at 2. There's Jeff Graham. He has such a presence about the way he plays, and the Ghosts really take that mentality from him. You know, Graham, 33 years old, he's coached, he's captained, and he's sort of the pulse of this Ghost team, both on offense and on defense.
Now, before you mentioned a win over Odyssey, they looked a little bit different, too, to talk about the team from Canada than they did back in July in Raleigh at the U.S. Open.
Well, all these teams are different from where they were in July, and they were frank about that back in July in Raleigh at the 2nd annual U.S. Open Championships. An early season tournament. Nice to have the opportunity to play some of the best teams in the nation, but every team we talk to mention how we're trying to get ready for October. And this is the time when teams like the Boston Ghosts plan to be at their best. And Boston's certainly been that, defeating the Chad Larson experience from Ames, Iowa in a tight game in the quarterfinals. It was close and Boston pulled away late, but unbeaten in their road to the semis.
Ryan Scribner to pull for Ghosts.
Ryan Scribner to pull for Boston as Minneapolis gets set to go back on offense.
You know, the mixed division always has a lot of turnover. Drag'N Thrust in its 5th year of existence. The Boston Ghosts in their 3rd season. For the Ghosts, it's their first time in the semis. Thought it was an interesting comment, though, that Jeff Graham said. He said, the last 2 years we lost in the quarters, and it was a disappointing finish. We expect to be one of the best teams because of our experience.
Well, they lost in the quarters the last 2 years. They put in their official team biography in the tournament guide, losing to teams from San Francisco in the quarter since 2011, losing to the eventual champion Blackbird out of San Francisco in 2011, and last year to Polar Bears.
Polar Bears in the other semifinal. They might get their revenge against Polar Bears in the final if the Ghosts can get there.
Out of bounds. That's a Drag'N Thrust turn.
Austin Lean along the sideline, couldn't hang on to it.
And Matthew Bordelot shaken up.
Red.
Take a look at the upline flip from Hron. And Lean was straddling the sideline when he caught it. Had to be concerned about Bordelot. Hope it was just a cramp, but Bordelot, one of the guys who commutes from Quebec, north of the border, to join this Boston Ghost team. A few Canadian players on this Boston roster, and as you can see, 33 years old. He's played this great sport for a while. Very experienced and knowledgeable.
And that's no short drive either. You're talking 6 or 7 hours for that trip.
It's a short drive compared to what some other players in the club scene make to practice with their club teams. Well, we haven't seen a break yet. Those have a chance here, though.
Along the far sideline, it's Marika Austin. Scribner had a drop. Trying to move it up, and Casey Turk couldn't handle it.
Turnover.
That goes in the unforced error column.
And that's now 2 of those for Boston. One there from Turp earlier. Jess Blanton had a drop, and really unforced, not a lot of pressure on those turns.
Just across midfield. Obviously midfield right at the 50. The field being 70 yards long, so the front end zone line is at the 15-yard line as we play on this beautifully groomed football field.
Lean with possession, flick to the end zone, and that is an easy score for Minneapolis. He goes up ahead to Ron, who pulls in his second goal.
Austin Lean to the end zone for James Huron, and the Drag'N Thrust score.
Good teams have these unspoken connections, and Austin Lean, as soon as he gets the disc, James Huron knows what he wants, and he breaks deep. Lean immediately knows it's coming. That's sort of the innate feel and chemistry that teams develop over the course of a season, and that's really tough to stop.
Last we saw Minneapolis, Lean was out with an injury in North Carolina, standing on the sidelines. Certainly they're glad to have him back on the field and part of their handling line.
Both these teams have had some injuries. Fortunately, James Huron is healthy. Jordan Hupp scored 15 goals in the pool play rounds, quarters and pre-quarters, but he is not with Drag'N Thrust for the weekend. Why? Well, he's attending his sister's wedding in Tennessee. She had to schedule it during the weekend of national championships.
She really should have thought about that before scheduling it for this weekend.
It was funny, though. Austin said, we basically told Jordan, we're going to run you to the ground the first couple days of the tournament.
Smart to do, why not?
Yeah, they really got every ounce of juice from his body, and he scored 15 goals. Really a main O-line cutter, but they're looking smooth so far without him. Drag'N Thrust, a team that does have a good deal of depth. It was dicey yesterday with an hour lightning delay. He almost missed his flight, but he was able to stay for the finish of the quarterfinal game and then get a whisk ride to the airport to get to Tennessee for his sister's nuptials.
About a 30-minute lightning delay. That pass goes in and out of the hands of Ben Faust, so on the turn, it's back to Minneapolis. A little bit windy, a little bit rainy yesterday. After day one on Thursday was about as picture perfect as you can get here in Frisco, Texas.
Well, here's a four-man cup from the Boston Ghosts. Drag'N Thrust going upwind. Every goal so far has been downwind, left to right. The team who has the first break in this game very likely could be the winner. In a zone defense, oftentimes it's a three-man cup with three players surrounding the disc, chasing it wherever it goes, trying to prevent the upfield throws. In recent years, we've seen more of the four-man cup. If you get by the four-man cup, though, it creates a lot of open space deep, and Drag'N Thrust with the first upwind break of the day.
Tom Bomberg hauls it into the end zone for Drag'N Thrust. Minneapolis with a 4-2 lead. Evan, as you were just explaining there, it was picture perfect. when the cup is broken, especially in a four-man cup, you've only got 3 players deep. It's essentially a 4-2-1 zone in that sense. And when they get through, as they did right here, getting it ahead to Dave Klink, there's really no chance for the defense.
Yeah, well, you're trying to prevent those over-the-top throws over the cup that will absolutely kill you. And the reason you do it on a very windy day in an upwind situation is because those overhand throws become much more difficult to complete. But a nice little high-release flick broke the defense there, and then for the score, Drag'N Thrust with a first break.
Here's a look at what we've got coming up later today here for coverage from Frisco, Washington, and Seattle. That'll be a great matchup as Scandal takes on Riot at 3:30, and then the men's semis will cover both of those tonight, Seattle and Boston, and at 9 Eastern, Denver and San Francisco.
That's Washington, D.C. against Seattle, Washington. Scandal and Riot, a rematch of the semifinal from the U.S. Open. Really excited for that game, and the 2 men's semis should be fantastic as well. You know, defending champion Double Wide was knocked off by Johnny Bravo from Denver in the quarterfinals, so instead of a rematch of last year's championship game, Revolver faces Johnny Bravo, and then Boston and Seattle, 2 great ultimate communities, go head-to-head at the biggest stage here at Nationals.
Got a foul called on the play. Looked like a great D there from Jay Drescher.
Foul on the play. Disc will stay with Ghosts.
And that looked like a strip. It looked like the Ghost player had it, stop rotation in his hands, and then the disc was knocked out, pulled out of his hands by the defender. When the offensive player stops the rotation, he's entitled to possession, and a tie does go to the offense.
Brian Stout hucks it up, and it's D'd away. Nice job downfield by Mike Peterson at 6'1" to get up in the air.
Yeah, Peterson had position, timed his leap perfectly for the D. Now shooting it deep downwind.
That hangs at a jostle for it, and it falls to the turf, just in and out of the hands of Jay Drescher, and he's now down on the field.
Drescher with an awkward spill. An interesting strategy here from Minneapolis. Basically off the turnover, they're shooting it deep. It's sort of an opportunity to punt it deep, and if you complete it, it's great. If not, you force the other team to go upwind, which is a really tough thing to do.
Here comes number 8, Claire Oakley, and she's down on her knees coming from the backside of the play, and her shoulder collides with Jay Drescher's head, the back of his head, which is where you might see him get shaken up a little bit. And we did see one injury substitution earlier. We won't see one here, but that's one of just 2 times in Ultimate where you can make a player substitution.
Only substitutions after injuries and after scores, which makes the longer points a battle of endurance.
So now after a break, here comes Boston trying to pull back to within 1. It would be 4-3 if the Ghosts can get a score.
Brian Schoenrock with a great layout D here from Minneapolis. Timed it perfectly and just got a fingertip on the disc to change the flight. This would have been a completed score if not for the silly layout. Getting horizontal. Gotta love it.
Well, I know what you'll encourage players to do over the course of the next 2 days. Catch your Ds, but in that case, that layout was pretty good too.
Brian Schoenrock has strings on the back of his jersey because that's what they call him. Known for his big plays in the air, and hopefully he's all right. May have gotten the wind knocked out of him. Drag'N Thrust wanted to shoot it deep, but it wasn't there. So a nice calm around, and now the deep shot.
And it's taken away. They were looking for Hran, who's already got 2 goals. Intercepted by Brian Stout on the D.
And it's going to be a fantastic matchup throughout this game. Stout from the Ghosts, experienced club player, Twisted Metal and Truck Stop in the Washington, D.C. area. against James Hron.
Those are really at 6'4" and 6'3" respectively, the two biggest guys out on the field. Now they go back down the other way. Stout
Greatest
for a
attempt.
greatest. And Boston keeps it alive on the greatest from Stout. And a foul called. They were looking for him, cutting across the end zone.
If you're lucky, you see one or two greatest a tournament. That was an outrageously athletic play by Brian Stout. An airborne catch, when you're unable to grab it inbounds, you leap out of bounds, catch it, and throw it before you land. One of the most spectacular plays in Ultimate. And thankfully, Austin was there to haul it in.
It was like simultaneous, where it's still one. It was simultaneous right as the check-in. Yeah.
An uncontested foul.
Goal line try here for Boston. Down 4-2. Travel called there, meaning the pivot foot moved for Jeff Grant.
Go defense!
Graham backhand, end zone. And a score for Boston as he connects with Tim Cobbett.
That was an inside break. They were forcing backhand. He got the backhand off, but went to the break side of the field.
Tim Cobbett brings it in for the Ghost score. That's Ghost 3.
And a good break side cut from Cobbett. There's the head coach, Jason Adams, enjoying what he's seeing so far from the Ghosts. Tim Cobbett, his second score.
Really like these jerseys for Boston. The Ghosts, it's a nice name, a nice logo. It could have been a lot different, though, for their name. The alternate choice was Dumbledore's Army, and not very veiled at all. Harry Potter reference there.
It was between the Ghosts and Dumbledore's Army. I think a few years after the Harry Potter craze has subsided just a little bit, they're happy to be the Ghosts.
They'd have players 10 years from now that wouldn't understand what the name was about.
Yeah, the genesis of names in Ultimate really is fascinating. In Drag'N Thrust, a great name too. The four forces that act on objects in flight are gravity, lift, drag, and thrust. So they're have a bunch of scientists on their team, and that's where Drag'N Thrust comes from.
Always enjoy a good physics joke. 4-3 Minneapolis with the disc.
Here comes the zone defense, four-man cup.
Well, we've seen the wind hold up the disc quite a bit, especially on Hucks here early in this action. And now they break it downfield to Hron, and he keeps the left foot in bounds.
Yeah, the first point of contact inbounds, unlike the NFL, you only need 1 foot. Ghosts might want to switch to man defense here. They do get the cup on, but unable to really settle it in. And you know, when you get that first big throw, oftentimes teams will have a word that they shout out to go man-to-man, to try to adapt, because once that cup is broken downfield, it's really tough to recover.
So Hron had that pull in right after breaking the cup. They go up ahead to lean the handler, and he finds Pat Niles eventually for the score. He goes right over the top of that cup, unafraid to throw over the top.
Well, just by judging from the American flag and the Texas flag beyond the far end zone, it looks like the wind has died down a little bit. And, you know, you would believe it because Drag'N Thrust has gone right down the field on back-to-back upwind points for scores. When this game started, it seemed like we may not see an upwind score. A hammer over the top of the cup to break it, and you know, a hammer into the wind is almost an impossible throw. But if the wind is light and you can find some space and put it to space, it can be a very effective way to break a zone defense. We already saw a greatest. Now if we see a Callahan today, we'll see the whole shebang, because the Callahan, a very rare play in Ultimate 2, similar to a safety in football, when the defense catches an offensive throw in the end zone for the score, I haven't seen a Callahan the first couple days here at Nationals, but you never know what you get when the ESPN cameras turn on.
Well, it wasn't very windy on Thursday, and then yesterday the wind picked up. I'd say probably more as the wind becomes more difficult, the chances increase on dump throws in the end zone that we might see one.
And you can force teams to throw from their own end zone if you can pull it and it lands in the back of the end zone. They have to play it from where it lands if it remains in bounds. So that's usually when a lot of Callahans will come. Off the pull, perhaps a quick throw popped up in the air by the reckless wind, and that's when a defense can capitalize. And perhaps nothing fires up a defensive line more than getting a Callahan, because it's so rare.
Pick called, Misha Horowitz. Off the restart for Boston. Backhand hook looking downfield. This will take a layout. Good effort, but no score for Boston. Captain Jeff Graham trying to chase that down and pull Boston back to within one.
Not a bad shot from Tim Cobbett. That's the thing about Graham. Very few players have the versatility to be great handlers and deep threats in the mixed division the way Graham does, evidenced by his 11 goals and 9 assists the first couple of days here in Frisco.
Looking deep downfield, that's just short of the end zone. Sarah Mextroth. Unmarked, dumps back, still outside, and Mextroth in the end zone for a Minneapolis score. She did a great job to run downfield, get herself under the huck, and she gets the goal as Minneapolis is now doubling up Boston here in the first half.
Minneapolis knew that Mextroth would be a huge deep threat for their team. A great wingspan, played 3 years at the University of Minnesota, actually graduated early, and now a force at the highest level in the mixed division.
She left Chelsea Burrows in her wake on that huck, probably about a 5-yard separation there.
And nice patience after receiving the disc. Set that pivot foot near the goal line, find the dump, and then the quick cut to space. Give, go, score for Minneapolis.
Dave Klink came down to get the assist and finish off the point for Drag'N Thrust.
They're giving us unders, and we continue to try to beat them deep.
And a timeout called by Boston after this point.
To our advantage. All right, let's get those easy ones.
Evan, I want to go back to one of the terms.
Go, go! We're laying the groundwork for the second half. Let's go! Keep on coming. I love this team. Let's go! Hey, here we go! Let's go! The ghosts on 3. 1, 2, 3.
The biggest thing that huddle is about sustaining energy. You're down 6-3. It's easy to be deflated a little bit. And a lot of times, these guys are friends, first and foremost, and they remind each other how much they care about each other. And when it comes to leadership in a huddle like that, that might be as big as any strategy change or tactical move that they can make. We believe in each other. Let's just fight and have fun.
I want to go back to one of the terms that we saw on that lingo sheet a few moments ago, and one of them was a stall. What you don't necessarily see or hear is the individual count that each defender has on the handler when the disc is in his or her hands, and that's a whole individual battle within the game itself every time the disc changes hands.
Well, the spirit of the game, basis of ultimate, comes from a place where it's all self-officiated. Observers give a nice little mix between referees and no observers at all. They're there to provide a basis and, sort of an arbiter for any disputes. But yeah, the stall count, the defender starts with the word stalling, and then 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 10. If the stall count is too fast, the thrower can say fast count. That's a call. The staller needs to then drop a couple counts. If there's a foul that's not contested, the stall count goes back to 0. In a new rule recently added to Ultimate, there's a contact call which resets the stall count without stopping play. And that's a nice adjustment by the folks at USA Ultimate, adding a rule that prevents the defense from gaining an advantage from fouling a thrower.
And we may not see that as much here in the mixed semifinal or the women's semifinal, but we certainly, standing on the sidelines the last 2 days, did hear that used quite a bit in the men's games.
In the men's game, you know, Marks try to be very physical because you don't have a ton to lose.
2-on-1, Boston looking deep, and it's Deed away in the end zone.
Well defended by Minneapolis.
Josh Hamish to pick up.
The sandwich defense there, even though the backside defender didn't do very much, as one Minneapolis player takes a spill, just her presence prevented the ghost player from gaining a better position to go up for that disc.
Schoenrock along the sideline, marked by Graham.
One more point to add about the contact call. An addition recently, because in the past a foul would stop everything, and even though the stall count might reset to 0, your offensive flow is disrupted. Now you can sustain the offensive flow while still gaining the stall count back to 0.
Looking deep, end zone, that hangs high. Schoenrock there, and it's Deed away. 2-on-1, one side, same down in this end zone.
And that's a flick that got a little too floaty up in this Frisco wind.
Keisha Horowitz to pick up for Ghost.
Brian Schoenrock, you could see the leaping ability. He was up above the 2 defenders, but misread the disc as it sailed out of the back of the end zone.
Third unforced turn for Boston here in the first half. Now Minneapolis on the doorstep and an easy conversion. Jake McKean cutting across, grabs the goal, and it's Minneapolis on top 7-3, one shy of taking half.
We're looking at the continuity of this Minneapolis team. Only 6 new players from last year's semifinalist. More than 20 of the same folks who were in Sarasota for the semifinals last year. And looking like a team that could be finals bound, capitalizing on Boston's mistakes. You mentioned the 3 unforced turnovers. Minneapolis taking care of business near the goal line in another Upwind score.
One of the keys for the game for Minneapolis coming into today's play was to have punishing defense, be tight on everything. Now they're on this 3-0 run. Do you feel like their tight man D has played a big part in those unforced turns?
Well, the man defense has forced pressure, and Boston has turned it over a couple times because of that pressure, but I think more so Minneapolis is benefiting from Boston's mistakes. You know, a few careless drops, that one near the goal line. It's really tough when there's a clear upwind and downwind. If you turn it over when you're going downwind near your own goal line and you don't force the other team to go the length of the field through that harsh wind, it really is a tough pill to swallow. And now Minneapolis could stuff, score, get a break downwind into halftime on a 4-zip run.
And it was the first break of this first half by Minneapolis Drag'N Thrust that seems to have turned the tide in their favor right now. Man-to-man defense for Minneapolis. Unforced turn number 4. Eric Dion gives it away and a chance to take half with a very short field for Drag'N Thrust.
And when things aren't going well, everything starts to crumble a little bit. He just turfed that throw. A throw he would make 99 times out of 100. A mistake and a costly one because now Minneapolis could take half here.
Pete Carr got it in. This is Tom Bomber. Sarah Mexstroth going flick, going end zone. And it's Deed away. Nice job by Matt Packard to come over there and get his fingertips on it.
Packard attacked that disc in the air. He didn't wait for it to come to him.
Eric Dion to pick up for Ghost.
He got just a little bit of a piece of it to disrupt the flight.
The New Hampshire native on this squad, a former Quiet Coyote player.
And he's going deep.
One-on-one, he skies and hauls it in. Contact on the catch, foul call.
It looked like he landed on the defender. Now, did he use that left arm on the defender's shoulder to brace his landing? Because that would probably be a foul.
Now, he went up against Jay Drescher and had his hand on his shoulder.
It looked really good, but it might be a foul.
But it's a foul if I can't jump. If you're straight above me, I would like to, I guess.
All right, so we got a foul. Come to the observer. We restart with a check. You were in the space first. It is not a foul. Start with a check.
Stephen Hubbard, the observer, coming in to make the call after the players deferred to him.
I agree with his comment that he was in the space first, and because of that, he's entitled to that space, but he also got away with a little left-handed push on the defender's shoulder. That could be a big play for Boston as they try to get back in it here in the first.
They need a score here. Boston with 4 unforced turns in the first half, leading to their deficit. And the backhand to the end zone. John Hirschberger, 6'5", pulls it in. A much-needed score for Boston to try and slow some of that Minneapolis momentum.
Pretty textbook end zone offense right here. To the break side, and then just flip it to space further on the break side. Hirschberger had a step, and the Cornell alum has the score. Nice layout bid from Bomberg. So that's an upwind hold for Boston. And the difference between 8-4 going into half or a Boston break here would be substantial. In the C pool, the Ghosts were the favorites and held seed. Slow White, another team from Boston. Slow White, a long time Boston mixed team, has been in semifinals and championship games before.
What you find on this Boston team is a lot of players formerly from mixed squad Quiet Coyote, former Ironside players as well. So a good mix of players from men's and women's teams that they previously played on. And what they say about this team, you know, we mentioned they don't really have formal practices during the week because they're a bit of an older team. So they've got family commitments, job commitments, and this team allows them to be able to do both.
And to still play at the highest level.
Downfield, Hron, right shy of the goal line. He leaves the flick up in the air, layout grab.
I think she caught it, but it looks like there was a call. The observers come together.
The call is down, it comes to the observer, the disc is up.
And it's a score. Minneapolis takes half, 8-4. Fingers underneath to keep the disc off the turf.
Well, Hron, as you can see, a couple yards behind the defender, John Hirschberger, but he goes over the top. His size and stature help him do that, puts it to space. And a great shoestring catch for Minneapolis to head to halftime.
Well, Hron has been such a big offensive weapon for Minneapolis in this first half, pulling in scores, but here getting the assist on the flick, and Jamie Glader had to lay out for that. Maybe a little bit dicier than they would have liked to take half. And that looks like it may have been down because the edge of the disc and her fingers got there at about the same time.
Very close. The rule is if it hits a blade of grass, it's down, but the observers converge, made the call, and Minneapolis able to take half, 8-4.
Well, they got that momentum big after the first break. And let's see where her fingers get it. She does touch it first.
Yeah, she does touch it before it hits the ground, and she stopped rotation pretty quickly.
North Texas High School All-Stars, who are going to give us just a little bit more ultimate.
All right, let's go on down to the sideline and check in with Jake Henderson. Thoughts on what has been a very good first half for your club?
We're playing real tough. It starts with tough defense. That's what our team is built around, and we're continuing that throughout the tournament.
You know, without Jordan Hupp, your leading scorer for the first couple days, did you expect James Hron to be even more of a target in this game?
Always. he's a beast in the air. We call him the Lumberjack.
And adapting to that zone defense, did you make any adjustments from the sideline to get that first Upwind score?
We're just looking for openings in the zone. There's always one, and we'll find it. We got great throwers.
Jake, it sounds like you've lost your voice a little bit over the first 2 days of this tournament. What has it been like? I know you've had the knee surgery, so you're permanently on the sideline. For you, has you been a real energetic part of keeping your team going?
It's been awesome. It's been a transition throughout the year from playing to coaching, and I've loved every minute of it. It's been difficult at times, but yeah, my voice has taken a hit this weekend. I'm batting a little bit of a cold, too.
What will be your message to the team here at halftime?
Hey, we got to play with energy. No team is ever out of this tournament. We know that firsthand. We came back against AMP on the first day, and we just got to bring the energy every single point, 1 point at a time.
Jake Henderson, coach of Minneapolis, thank you. Good luck in the second half.
Thanks a lot.
In mixed semifinal number 1, Minneapolis takes half over Boston at 8-4. It was the first break of the first half that really changed the momentum for Drag'N Thrust as they take the half in mixed semifinal number 1. Mike Cousins, Evan Lepler, glad to have you along with us here in Frisco, Texas. And Evan, in that first half, like I said, the break changed momentum for Minneapolis, and they really relied on James Hron, his athletic ability, and some big hucks to open up the scoring.
It was a very telegenic half of Ultimate because of all the deep shots, creating excitement, and Hron was the biggest deep threat in the field. The Ghosts do have a couple guys who theoretically could match up with him, but I think on the field they're realizing he's a different beast than what he looks like from the sidelines, and Hron has been the difference maker for Minneapolis.
Scoring was even early, 2-2. Boston, the Ghosts get on the board, but after that, Minneapolis was able to take over.
Well, great ultimate, shooting it deep, in Boston able to catch it near the end zone for the score. An early start for the team from the Northeast, but then the North Central region team, Drag'N Thrust from Minneapolis, back in the semifinals for the third time ever in the second straight year. They were patient, but they also took some chances and capitalized. That was the point, Upwind, that beat the zone for the first time, and Jamie Glader just able to get that disc before the rim touches the ground to take half 8-4. It was Hron's remarkable sky that set that up. Hron put it to space, and then Glader did the rest. A big momentum play to take Minneapolis to halftime.
What Boston's going to want to work on coming up in the second half, get rid of those unforced turns. 4 of them, one especially, led to scores.
Yeah, and aside from Hron, the second biggest factor of the game, those unforced turnovers from Boston, and I'm sure that's what Jeff Graham and Jason Adams are talking about. They realize that they're still very much in this game. This is a group of experienced Ultimate players that has come back from bigger deficits than this, but they're going to have to erase those unforced errors.
All right, let's go on down to the sidelines. And for Ghosts in the first half, Coach, we look at the turnovers were probably the biggest thing there. How do you go about addressing those?
I mean, I think we had some jitters to start off the game, and you know, we've all been in this situation before, so it's just getting up to speed and feeling confident and going out and playing the way we know how to play.
James Hron, their main deep threat, obviously he's a handful. You guys got some good defenders, but will you change up the way you try to defend him at all?
Yeah, I mean, we don't want them to be able to beat us with one throw. You know, that makes for a very easy ultimate as an offense. It's windy out here, and you know, going downwind, they've had a couple really good shots. We know they have a bunch of throwers, so I think we just, you know, we have to apply a little bit more pressure on the mark. We have to really make them work, throw some extra throws, give us a chance to get some blocks, and I think we can do it.
Coach, you've seen a lot of ultimate in your day, and a 4-goal deficit is not a small deficit. It's a substantial deficit, but I'm sure you've seen larger deficits than this overcome. What's the biggest deficit you've overcome in your life?
I've been down 8-2. I've been down 8-2 and come back, and it really started with a firm commitment to my individual teammates to just make a play. It starts with defense. You know, we know the offense is going to be there. We have to apply the defensive pressure, make them work, and if we're all in this together, we'll be successful.
All right, Coach, thank you very much.
Great,
Good luck.
Thanks.
Jason Adams, head coach of Boston, 8-4. A good chance for momentum to start here for Boston as we get ready for the opening pull of the second half in Frisco, Texas. Mixed semifinal action in the USA Ultimate National Championships. Mike Cousins, Evan Lepler, glad to have you along here at Frisco ISD Memorial Stadium.
The wind has died down considerably from where it was at the start of the game. Downwind for the Ghosts, but not a significant wind to keep track of. And seriously, there's not a single cloud in the sky that we can see from our perch here in the booth. It is gorgeous. Thursday was gorgeous too, but there were like 2 clouds in the sky.
That really ruined it for me.
No contest.
Jeff Graham along the sideline, one of the co-captains for Boston, gets it in off a stall call. And now a pick call. Whenever we see that stoppage of play across the middle of the field, if you are unfamiliar with Ultimate, more often than not, it will be a pick call.
Unlike basketball, you're not allowed to impede another player's progress with your body. If you run your defender through the stack, it's likely it'll be a pick.
When the disc is in the air to him. Absolutely.
No.
The disc was checked. It's a wrong violation call.
Is there a violation as well?
It was a violation. He called a violation on the check-in.
Okay.
It said, so it comes back.
He called violation incorrect.
And it was an incorrect call,
The disc
but it
was
still
checked
comes
in.
back.
After the recheck, he called violation incorrect then.
The violation he's referring to is on a restart. If players move before the disc is checked back in, that's a violation, and there's a turnover.
Misha Horowitz a little too quick off of Graham's back, so miscommunication after tons of communication between players and observers, and a chance for a break here to start the second half for Minneapolis. And the unforced turn now turns back to Drag'N Thrust. Claire Oakley right in and out of her hands.
Graham wanted the deep shot, but he was defended well by Drescher.
Pick called over the middle here, about 10 yards out. It's Ann Lightbody with the disc.
Spacing becomes more difficult when you get close to the end zone. But the Ghosts need to do something here to create more space. Each of their 7 players are on the near third of the field, looking for a dump swing perhaps to create space on the other side, and they've done it.
Pick called again, this time as the disc ends up in the hands of Ben Faust, who played his college ultimate at George Washington University down in D.C. Faust shows hammer, goes flick, end zone, and 2 players missing. Last chance was for Jeff Graham, and he couldn't hang on. So the turn for Boston.
Goes turnover in the end zone.
You get 2 chances and you can't come down with it. Both able to contact the disc and neither able to haul it in.
Graham gets the D, and Boston has had a lot of life on this one possession, the longest of the game so far. End zone feed in. Boston converts on the first try. Courtney Moores played her college ultimate at Northeastern, and Boston back to within 8-5.
Good open side cut from Moores. An easy flick to the front cone. Able to get that foot in for the score, and a big start to the second half for the Ghosts.
Well, if you're Boston, you're happy to get the score. If you're Minneapolis, you're saying, we could have had a break there on that. It would have been pretty easy had they not turned it over.
And Minneapolis with a couple of unforced mistakes, leaving the door open for Boston. Now we'll see this downwind Drag'N Thrust offense. Courtney Moores, 27 years old. She's one of the younger players on this Boston Ghost team. Only Montreal's Odyssey had an older average age among all the teams here at Nationals. Boston was 15th out of 16 teams in terms of youth.
Or lack thereof. And part of that with an older roster is that they want to get all of their players involved on every point. to be able to spread it out because of the wealth of experience and the skill set that they have in every player on their roster, which isn't the case for a lot of teams. Usually you'll have your reserves that won't play quite as often.
Yeah, they stretch the rotation pretty wide. A lot of different players they have confidence in.
Travel called as Hran made a sliding grab.
Travel call.
We'll see if this one goes back.
And the observer ruled no travel. So it'll stay with Hran. It was a nice high release backhand to the break side.
Hran with Eric Stevens on the mark.
I like how patient and calm Hran is with the disc. You know, he knows his strength is cutting deep and not throwing, so he'll get it, he'll take a deep breath, he'll find an open dump or somebody wide open in the end zone, and then look to cut deep again.
10 yards out, this is Jamie Glader. Her long goal of the first half helped Minneapolis take half as she picked one off the turf.
May have been a contact call there.
That looked like exactly what it was. And you saw the observer, Stephen Hubbard, was there ready to make a call, seeming like he heard contact, and they played on, which is nice because, as you said earlier, it doesn't slow the flow of the offense.
Hran's in the center of the end zone. See if they try to isolate him to make a cut. The good teams, Mike, aren't afraid to go backwards once they get in the red zone.
Stall count had to be rising there. Dump back to Austin Lean.
A little over the top, Scuber.
Minneapolis very patient on the possession, and it pays off for Drag'N Thrust. Patty King gets the score. Minneapolis back up in front, and the advantage once again is 4 at 9-5.
Really calm end zone offense from Minneapolis. Got it to about 5 yards from the goal line, ended up going back to about 20 yards from the goal line. The little over-the-top Scuber for the break, and a nice little fake, the flick, and an easy backhand for the score. The pivot on the throw, on the move right before the score, was the big difference in creating the space to have the throw. Here comes the Scuber over the top of the shoulder of the defender. Taking his time. There's the Scuber, and the big flick fake right there got the defender to bite, created the space for the score.
That's just great patience there. And Austin Lean, in his 5th year with this team, played his college ultimate for the University of Illinois, was able to facilitate that possession and get them going.
Yeah, Lean, you know, we talk a lot about Boston's experience, but we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Lean's experience. He played in college nationals all 4 of his years at Illinois. You know, a really steady handler and just a steady leader for this team of players who have a mixture of college experience and experience at the highest level on the club scene.
Start of possession going deep, and Jeff Graham on the layout try. He'll do that every single time, whether he's got a shot or not, and that was probably about a credit card's length away.
You know, just a tremendous effort from Graham, but you can't ignore the fact that Boston's just a little out of sync right now on their deep shots. That was as much of a punt as anything. The stall count rising.
Man-to-man defense for Minneapolis.
This is Beth Nakamura making the open side cut. She was a tremendous player for Brute Squad and the women's scene. One of the top women's teams in the nation for a long time.
Jay Drescher on the D there, going step for step with Jeff Graham at a foul call. No contest from Drescher, so disc coming in at stalling 0.
Desperation hammer.
Toward the end zone and a sky. How about that? Ben Faust brings it down and a goal for Boston.
The stall count was rising. Nothing was there on the open side, so why not toss it over the top? Jeff Graham drops the hammer, and Ben Faust hauls it in.
Two-handed grab right over the top of Jake McKean. That's great athleticism there.
And great awareness from Graham. Knowing that he's got a guy with size and athleticism. Obviously, Faust knows that Graham has that high floaty hammer in his arsenal, and he knew it was coming when the stall count hit about 6 or 7. That's something that they've done throughout the weekend, and Graham, with his second assist for the score, it won't be his last.
It's so interesting to watch the Ghosts struggle a little bit in the first half, but then to be able to make a play like that where two players who don't get to practice together on a weekly basis are still able to connect and know what the other wants to do.
Well, they've played together on club teams in the Boston area for a long time, so Jeff Graham has a reputation for being a versatile thrower. And Faust with just a superb athletic play.
Now, Graham's a versatile athlete. He tells a story of how he got into playing Ultimate when he was in college at the University of Massachusetts, went to go to an informational meeting for the crew team, rowing, and then he found out they have practice at 4:45 in the morning. I'm not interested anymore. And as he's walking back across campus to his dorm, walks by some folks flicking, hucking, playing Ultimate on the quad, and he was transfixed ever since.
An easy choice in my book. Oh my, what a great hustle play to avenge her near drop.
Patty King keeps the possession alive for Minneapolis. Ron, goal line. Lean has it, but he's right on the doorstep. The underhand toss gets the score. Jamie Glader with her second goal of the afternoon.
Well, in some cases, push passes near the end zone can be seen as a little risky, but no risk right here. A great catch to haul this in. The pancake clap to sustain possession. Patty King able to set up Lean. Haran hits Lean, straddling the end zone. 1 foot in, 1 foot out. That's not in. Little push pass to the open side. And Minneapolis in double figures here in the mixed semifinal.
You can't underestimate the value of the good fundamentals on that grab by Patty King to go for the pancake catch there, knowing that she A, had to avoid it hitting the turf, but B, how many times did we see over the course of the last 2 days some players get a little too casual and drop in a one-handed catch attempt?
You need to sustain possession of the catch through the ground contact. Very similar to the NFL and professional football. So if the ground causes a fumble per se, it would be viewed as an incomplete pass, but Glader able to hang on. Patty King, 2 hands. She stopped the rotation before the disc hit the ground. Well done.
After the pull, here comes Boston with the possession. The Ghosts trailing 10-6. They're moving quickly. Graham's got the disc.
Nice dump swing. Just creating space on the break side of the field. That's textbook offense from Boston.
Tim Cobbett, the score for the Ghosts. The easiest possession that any team has had today, not using a huck.
Here's where the goal line situation begins. Dump, swing, and score. And really nice spacing on that point from Boston. You know, statistics in Ultimate only take you so far, because just like statistics in football, how do you credit the offensive lineman for creating the right amount of protection time for the quarterback? How do you credit the other receiver for drawing the defense one way to create an opening for another receiver? And that's basically ultimate. Cobbett, 3 goals today, but the spacing for the full 7-player offensive line there did an excellent job for Boston. That's why the stats, Mike, really don't always tell the story. Nice patient release to the end zone and an easy score for Cobbett. But, you know, the stats really don't tell the story, because in order for somebody to get a goal, someone had to help him create space. And someone had to throw it, and someone had to throw the throw before the throw to set up the throw.
Oh, now it makes sense.
Yeah.
Although it is definitely fun, and you know, we'll talk about this as the day goes on, as we get into the women's and then men's semifinals later on, what some of the developing statistics do say about percentages of scoring and touches that players have and the likelihood of them touching the disc leading to a score. It is all interesting to look at, but it's just part of the equation.
And there are some teams who will have players who will touch the disc, you know, every 3rd throw on average, because he or she is the primary handler, and that's who the team feels most comfortable with the disc in their hands. Other teams, you know, might not have anybody on the field who touches the disc, you know, more than 1 out of every 5 times, because they balance it out so evenly.
Jeff Trosvig with the cross-field flick, and a beautiful low throw finds Anna Hetler in the end zone.
I'm not sure what was better, Trosvig's flick or his celebration on the near side of the field. Fired up after that crossfield score, a beauty.
That's Drag'N Thrust 11, go 7.
That's a beautiful throw. He's being forced away. Knows exactly what he wants.
Low release. A rising flick into the hands of Hetler.
Well, coming up, we're going to have more ultimate action coming your way later today on ESPN 3. We'll have a women's semifinal for you live, 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central. So join us live here from Frisco, Texas on ESPN 3 and the Watch ESPN app. Take it anywhere with you, your phone, your tablet, or your PC.
It's going to be a fascinating game. Seattle and San Francisco in the women's division, the 2 cities that have been at the apex for a long time. But there's a 3rd team that over the past 18 months or so has elevated itself into the top tier. And the East Coast group from Washington, D.C., Scandal, have a great coaching staff, a couple players who competed down at the World Games with the national team, and Scandal has the confidence to knock off Seattle Riot if it can play its best game.
Here comes Boston down 11-7. No breaks yet here in the second half, so the difference has remained 4. That hangs up and a little bit too high. The D for Minneapolis, and a chance to go out in front by 5. Full length of the field to go against man-to-man defense.
Throughout most of this game, the Ghosts have forced backhand.
They do again on a hook, open space downfield, and now it is a 5-point difference between Minneapolis and Boston.
Drescher to Mextroff, and a beautiful offensive sequence. It started with the D near the goal line, a throw that was slightly underthrown, and it began with Mextroth getting the D out of our screen. She's going to start her deep cut. A few breaks, low release throws, an open side cut, and then just Mextroth took off. An easy throw for a confident handler.
She had about 15 yards of separation by the time she found herself pulling that in the end zone. So now 12-7, Minneapolis leads Boston, and the winner of this game goes on to tomorrow's mixed final, also here at Frisco ISD Memorial Stadium.
The other semifinal Another team from Boston that really came out of nowhere, wild card.
Let's go, Dragon
That finished third at Northeast Regionals, able to make a strong imprint here at Nationals in Frisco, and it'll be wild card against the Polar Bears from San Francisco, a team that consistently has been near the top of the mixed division.
Let's go! Get down! Let's go!
But if we're going to have an all-Boston final, Mike, the Ghosts are going to need to turn it on soon because they're running out of time. You know, we're at a point right now where basically, you know, Boston would need to score 8 out of the next 10 points to win this game, and that's a really tall task against a team like Drag'N Thrust. You know, we talked to Jake Henderson at halftime. It's got to be really tough for him to just be on the sideline and watch his friends. There's an unforced turnover. Henderson has had 4 ACL surgeries.
5th unforced turn of the game. Drag'N Thrust 1 pass to Josh Hemish. Minneapolis pulling away. Unforced turns, breaks have done Boston in.
End zone for the Drag'N Thrust score.
Pressure there from Dave Klink. And a quick pickup, Klink to Hemish. And Minneapolis beginning to sense it.
Evan, this has been strange to see, knowing the experience of this Boston team, is that the turnovers haven't really come from much direct pressure. It's been on catches in space like that, where it's just a matter of keeping the disc in between your hands.
It's been one of those days. And even good teams have those days when the offense isn't really in sync. And for Boston, the mistakes have been compounded by Minneapolis's ability to capitalize. 3 different players have scored twice, and the 14 turnovers looming very large. On serve in the second half until that last goal from Drag'N Thrust. And now just 2 points away from their first ever finals berth here at Nationals.
When we talked to Austin Lean, one of the captains for Drag'N Thrust yesterday, some teams will tell you, you know, if we made it to quarterfinals, we'd be happy. Those are some of the up-and-coming teams that you might hear that from. He said, we expected to be in semis, and now well on their way to a trip to the finals tomorrow.
Well, here in the inaugural year of the Triple Crown Tour, Drag'N Thrust has talked about the amount of experience they've gleaned from it. That's a great catch from Graham, but a call may bring it back.
Looked like perhaps a travel on the throw.
Watch that left pivot foot. Looks like he held it pretty good.
Everybody good. Everybody where you were when you caught it.
The disc will advance.
So no travel. The disc will stay with Graham.
Graham guarded by Drescher. Everybody has to hold their position to where the disc was caught.
Just outside of the end zone. He'll take a timeout for
So he'll call a timeout. But, you know, in regards to the Triple Crown Tour, this being the first year of the USA Ultimate Triple Crown Tour, National Championships, the culmination of this event, it's given the top-tier teams an opportunity to spend the season facing other top-tier teams. And that's one of the reasons that these 4 teams have advanced all the way to the semifinals. Drag'N Thrust, an interesting showing at the Pro Flight finale in Davis. A couple losses. In fact, they lost on Universe Point to the Chad Larson Experience in the Pro Flight finale. CLX from Iowa falling just short of the semifinals.
We certainly love them.
Drag'N Thrust, though, got an opportunity to play against some of the top teams in the world at the US Open in July. And, you know, creating a more defined regular season has given the top teams a chance to really firm up their game plans heading into the biggest tournaments of the year.
A lot more action coming your way here from Frisco, Texas as we go throughout the day. If you're an Ultimate fan, this has really got to be one of the best days of the year. We'll have a women's semi coming up. It'll be Scandal against Riot. And then on the men's side, we'll bring you both semifinal action, 6:30 and 9 o'clock Eastern. Won't want to miss it here on ESPN 3.
Off the timeout, was there a foul?
There was contact on that tip throw.
We do have a foul call on the play.
It may have been a foul, but it was a nice poach from Erica Bacon. Little help defense there to get in the way.
Yep. Okay. They're gonna
really close.
Yeah, that's it. I
think I just went to the disc and hit.
Yeah. Okay. She beat you to the spot and you came into her. So, yeah, absolutely.
When we talk about a poach, we talk about a defender helping out. And Bacon that time saw the Boston player with an opportunity to create space. She came to help out, a quick turnover to give it right back.
A little bit too aggressive there from Jeff Trosvig, trying to move it downfield quickly. Boston gets exactly what it wanted after the timeout. They go back to their captain, and Jeff Graham catches it in the end zone.
You said it. Just a careless mistake there. More of a punt opportunity, but he only threw it about 25, 30 yards. A low throw that never had much air underneath it. And a quick capitalization as Graham found space on the far side of the field.
That negated a very strong defensive effort from Erica Bacon, a 23-year-old who played at Claremont College for her college ultimate days. It's now 13-8, so Minneapolis just 2 scores away from picking up a win and moving on to the finals. Triple Crown Tour USA Ultimate National Championships here in Frisco, moving back to Texas this year, the first time in 13 years that it hasn't been down in Sarasota, Florida. 6th time here in the Lone Star State, and the last leg in the inaugural year of the Triple Crown Tour.
And the week begins with 48 teams, 16 each of the 3 divisions that qualify. Each division has been shrunk from 16 to 4, and obviously heading into tomorrow, only 6 teams will still harbor championship hopes. Wow. 1 throw and a giveaway.
Back-to-back messy turns by Minneapolis, giving Boston life here in the second half.
And a good upline cut from Graham. His defender was over pursuing the swing. He made him pay.
Dump back to the middle of the field, 7 yards out, and Seth Crockford gives it up. Graham's got it. 2 straight scores for the captain.
That was a lefty high release backhand from Crockford, catching the defense off guard.
Seth Crockford into the end zone for Jeff Graham, and the Ghost
Crockford wants to throw
Drag'N Thrust 13.
the flick, it looks like. And watch him change hands here. The elite players make that look really, really easy. It's a high release lefty backhand. He went to that throw because it was easier to get it off over the left shoulder of a defender. And speaking from experience, you're guarding a right-handed thrower and you're in the defensive stance, you're not anticipating that lefty throw at all. So you're not going to block that, and it's a way for the thrower to release it over the defender's shoulder on the break side. Really impressive toss.
That's the first break for the Ghosts this afternoon. Yet, Minneapolis has not relinquished its 4-goal lead as it took half 8-4. Sloppy last 2 possessions for Drag'N Thrust. Uncharacteristic turnovers. Jeff Trosvig had one off of a turn, about where this possession's starting. And then another one off the pole last time, leading directly to that Boston score. Tight man D forcing home. Foul called with Marika Austin on the mark.
No contest.
She's one of the main defenders.
Upline throw. Jeff Trosvik couldn't get it.
Excellent D from Bordalo, who we saw hobble off the field in the first half. Good sign he's able to make a play like that. Now the deep shot looking for Graham.
Try for a greatest, up in the air. And it falls incomplete. Second greatest try we've seen in this game.
This is unbelievable. He hung up in the air like Jordan. Able to catch it with two hands and get that backhand off. Obviously, he didn't have much regard, but he got some nice air under it, gave his teammates certainly a chance to make a play.
Patty King moves it up line. James Hron along the sideline. Marked there by John Hirschberger.
And Graham, another huge D.
Jeff Graham with a beautiful D for
Trying to put this team on his back here in the second half when the Ghosts need it the most. It's a hand in the passing lane, horizontal.
Graham's no young buck. He's 33. He has put his body on the line here in this game, knowing what's at stake. Boston having made the semis, or rather the quarters the last 2 years, losing to eventual champion Blackbird in 2011 and last year to Polar Bears in 2012.
A couple teams from San Francisco. Graham plays peacemaker there too. Now this Boston team, a collection of players who were involved in the highest levels of the men's and women's division. A lot of the men played for Twisted Metal and then Ironside. A lot of the women played for Godiva and Brute, some of the other top women's teams out of Boston over the past decade or decade and a half. And just because they're a little bit older, Jeff Graham, you said 33, doesn't mean the competitive fire is gone. And clearly, he's got some game to back it up. You know, he's not a coach because his playing career is over. He's a coach because he's got a ton of knowledge and he still can play too.
Graham throws deep. Hirschberger the layout try. And it falls a little bit too far for the 6'5" former Cornell Ultimate player.
Out of reach on that hook.
Hirschberger was a member of the Boston Ironside team last year, but off the restart back to live action, a half-field throw to Hron. He dumped it, takes it back again. He could have rushed the throw deep. Instead, he goes up line and turns it over.
Hron from 15 yards out was looking for Erica Bacon. Turnovers here have been a window opener for Boston.
And this has been one of the more back and forth points of the game. We haven't really had any real marathon points. The time cap's not going to be a huge factor in this game, most likely.
Big Huck, Wynn keeps it in the air. Graham there, and a score for Boston. Absolute exhaustion after full throttle running to get to the end zone.
He went over a couple different players here. Graham overcoming a 10-yard gap or so. Over the top, an awkward landing. But a vitally important score for the Boston Ghosts.
And now at 13-10, this is the closest that Boston has been to Minneapolis since the first half. Remember, Drag'N Thrust took half 8-4. They were dominant in the first half, and now Graham, like you said, has put Boston on his back. getting D's, scoring, distributing in the second half to make it a 3-goal game.
Well, bookends on that point for Graham. He got the D and he got the score, and he'll probably do most of the talking in this huddle.
Correction. That was a Drag'N Thrust timeout. Ghosts and Drag'N Thrust both have one timeout left.
They can't play with our energy. All right, let's continue to bring it. We're starting on O up there. Let's go,
Jake Henderson trying to rebuild the energy after what was probably the longest point of the game. And meanwhile, Boston sensing that this could be the point that really gets them back into it. One more break here, it would be an upwind break if they could get it. Then they'd have the downwind opportunity, and this could be 13-12 if they can just take advantage and force Minneapolis into 1 or 2 mistakes.
It was 13-7 with Minneapolis in front. Now a 3-0 run for the Ghosts of Boston to bring it back to 13-10.
And while it's not a major factor, we should let you know that the soft cap just went on. So officially it would go on after this point. What the soft cap means, when it goes on, you add 2 points to the team's highest score, and if it's below 15, you'd play to that number. But right now, obviously, Minneapolis at 13, so the scoring has been plentiful in this game. The time cap more becomes a factor on a very windy day, a defensive dominated day, when it may be 9-7 when the cap goes on, and then the game would be to 11 or 12. But we are 20 minutes away from the hard cap, and when the hard cap goes on, you finish the point, and if the game is not tied, the game is over. So you can't be down by 2 when the hard cap goes on.
Yet another turn. Alicia Carr gives it away, was looking up line for Hran, and the momentum continues for Boston. The Ghosts send a 3-0 run. That hangs up. Hran takes it away, getting the easy D that fell right into his lap.
Back to lean. Hran had the D. Let's see if he breaks deep here. And another bad turnover. Hran was getting ready for a deep cut.
This is Seth Crockford near midfield.
Mike, each team has 1 timeout left.
Marika Austin on a dump. Crockford gets it back.
Righty thrower, but we've seen the high release lefty. Stays righty this time. You can hear get out there, worried about clogging near the end zone. They clear to the open space, and the Ghosts on a 4-0 run.
Brian Stout gets the goal. We talked to Jason Adams, the head coach of Boston, at halftime. Biggest deficit he said he's ever faced was 8-2. Seemingly not much of a challenge here for the Ghosts, who have ridden the momentum to now make it just a 2-score game.
And it was 8-4 at half, but an 8-2 deficit, not all that different from 13-7, which it was 4 points ago. And now Boston, with an upwind break, an opportunity to try to stuff and score downwind. It's going to be interesting to see here if both teams tighten up their lines.
(13-11) with the soft cap on now, so it's a game to 15. Seth Crockford had a big hand at that last point. He was essentially dumping and swinging with Marika Austin, looking to find open cutters in the end zone.
Certainly one of the primary handlers, another guy with great experience in the open division, played for Sockeye, played for Pony, played for Ironside. Sockeye versus Ironside. Seattle and Boston will be one of the semifinals later today here in Frisco.
So that's experience all over the country for Crockford, Seattle, Boston, and New York.
Oh my.
Near turn, extended hands from Josh Hemmis keep the possession alive. They were looking for Tallis Boyd.
The second defender prevented Boyd from getting there, but it left, I believe, Glader wide open.
That's out. Jeff Trosvig the catch. Count rising, he gets rid of it, and a score. Important possession there as Drag'N Thrust avoids turning it over, as they have frequently here in the second half, to bring it to within one of victory.
A lot of things to take note of on this point, Mike. First of all, before the big huck, Jeff Graham just throws his body everywhere. It's really impressive to watch. But here's the big huck. You see the second defender come out. It prevents Boyd from having the angle he wants, but it also left Glader wide open. She was smart to clean up the trash, read it well, and then excellent end zone defense here from Boston, but Drag'N Thrust to Minneapolis was patient. They were not in a rush, pivoting back and forth, nice vision, but the stall count rising, and eventually the inside break backhand for the score, the guy they call Strings.
But what do you make of the strategy there for Minneapolis to go for that huck, looking for Boyd downfield, considering the turnover troubles they've had ever since they took half?
I think that's their game. They're a big play team in a big play game here at the National Championships, and that's where they feel most comfortable taking the deep shot. A part of it also is they don't want to turn it over near the goal line. If they're going to turn it over, they want to make Boston go the entire 70 yards of the field. So now Minneapolis 1 point away. Boston needs to focus on scoring on their offensive point right here before they can even think about the rally that they're going to need to make an outrageous comeback here.
Jay Drescher's pull about halfway back into the end zone, where the possession starts for Boston. It's tight man-to-man defense here from Drag'N Thrust. At a vertical stack action, looking deep. Tim Cobbett downfield, pulls it in 5 yards short of the end zone, and he takes a timeout. Evan, we talked about this over the course of the last 2 days. Watching pool play, pre-quarters, quarters, that slows the momentum a little bit there sometimes.
Timeout does force the teams to both reset. So they'll reset, the offense will set, then the defense will set, and you better believe that Boston will try to look to get it to Jeff Graham, who's been dynamic all tournament long, receiving and throwing, and some of his defensive plays have been more impressive than anything. This one over the top for the score. Thankfully he wasn't injured. He was down for a little bit after this one.
He takes it away from Marika Austin, his own teammate.
And Graham, you know, coming off a concussion earlier this spring, he was playing Ultimate. He got hit. He remembers, you know, waking up in a hospital bed. But obviously he's healthy now and has overcome a bunch of injuries to bring this Boston Ghost team to the semifinals.
As a consummate teammate, though, that was a big game for his team when he got that concussion. He said after he was discharged, he still made it to celebrate with the team. Not excessive celebration, but at least to be there as a teammate and as a captain.
With the disc for Ghost. Out of that timeout. He's about 5 yards out of
So
the
5 yards out as Boston looks for a necessary score here, down 14-11.
Isolation play, and the Scuba leads to the score.
Boston needed that. Ben Faust was there, one of their most important cutters. It's now 14-12, and they'll need their defense to come up big.
Yeah, Faust is 6'2", but he has longer arms than perhaps he should for only being 6'2". And a nice little over-the-top throw. The wind has died down, so that throw isn't as difficult as it may have been when the score was 0-0. You know, it really felt like when this game was 3-3 and everything had been downwind, it felt like it would be one of those tennis matches where, you know, 1 or 2 breaks of serve might be all that you get when, you know, Federer and Djokovic are slinging back and forth. But the way the wind has died down has opened up the upwind game and given both teams an opportunity to score upwind and break upwind. Shows how the conditions can change in the span of less than 90 minutes here in northern Texas. And I think, you know, most teams here at Nationals may be a little sad to not be at the beach, but they're not sad. In fact, they're happy about getting out of the wind that the beach usually brings.
With Nationals not in Florida for the first time in 13 years, but Frisco and the FC Dallas Soccer Complex used for the first 2 days of this tournament proved to be an absolutely wonderful venue. Close fields. We still probably put in a couple miles walking. Count that as the exercise for the day. But they made it easy to catch a lot of games.
From the brick, a backhand force.
Layout try, nothing doing for Jamie Glader. We got a call.
Glader says she had it.
Correct.
Foul called.
So I don't think you...
I think the observer said she didn't have it.
I only hit the disc. Okay, but I only hit the disc, so it's not a strip. It's not a foul, right?
Okay, no, but it's a check.
She's retracted. Call.
Is everybody ready? Yeah.
Closest defender. No
She
call.
retracted the call. Oh, that was really close. Closer than I thought it was from seeing it live.
Yeah, your tap.
If you're live.
10.
So Minneapolis continues to give Boston extra opportunities. Boston trying to capitalize, looking for Graham, end zone, he skies and scores.
Rockford to Jeff Graham once again for the Ghost.
So from 13-7 down, Boston on a 6-1 run. Pretty cool that we could see the observers, hear the observers decide the call. They didn't even go to the observers. If they did, the call would have been the same, and Jeff Graham, the target.
Graham, the captain, was ahead of the pack, timed his jump perfectly. 4 goals for him. What do you make of what Minnesota's doing here? We talked about they like to go deep, that's the way they play, but it hasn't worked very well right now as Boston's right back in it.
One of the big reasons that both teams focus so much on energy and enthusiasm is because Ultimate is a game of momentum. And when the energy's at the highest point and a team is in a groove, it's really tough to stop. Bunch of Boston and Minnesota teams, aside from these two here at Nationals, supporting the hometown clubs.
The Ghosts get the pull from John Hirschberger. Minnesota with a chance to finish it off if they can score on this possession.
The stack was too far down the field, Mike. Stall count's getting high, and he just unleashes one. But James Hron's nearby. Now they're looking deep to Hron after Niles hauled it in.
And he turns it over right into the hands of Seth Crockford. Incredible. Boston with a chance to tie. They huck downfield. Graham all alone in the end zone. It looks like a pick called on the play.
Looks like the disc is coming back.
Well, what a sequence. You had the desperation huck, which was a smart play with the stall count rising. Niles able to haul in the pass, but then it was like he was throwing it right to Seth Crockford.
Pick call upheld. Crockford will get the disc.
So they uphold the pick call, and it comes back to Crockford. Hard to explain why Jeff Graham got that wide open if it wasn't for a pick.
Lean on the D. Crockford away to Graham. Give and go up line.
If they called a timeout when they didn't have any, it's a turnover. And Seth Crockford knows what it feels like to be Chris Webber.
Ghost calls a timeout.
Unless they have one left.
Not have one. That's a
They didn't.
No, they did not.
They used their last timeout on the goal line.
15 yards away from potentially tying it up and forcing a double game point. A big-time mental mistake from an experienced guy.
Now Trosvig deep for Hran. That falls incomplete. There was contact, but no call. So Drag'N Thrust continues the aggression, and they continue to turn it over.
Minneapolis is playing nervous ultimate right now, forcing the issue a little bit. That was not a throw that gave Hran a chance to make a play.
Full length of the field to go once again. Crockford guarded by Lean. Here's this patient offense from Boston. Dump, swing, look upfield. If it's not there, take the underneath.
Jess Blanton making the in cut. Looks her off. This is good patience here from Boston. Can he keep it in bounds?
Out to the near sideline. Greatest try by Graham. And that falls out of bounds.
There may have been an injury before the throw, and this might come back to Boston.
Graham is down along the near sideline.
That'd be a second injury.
Well, let's take a look at how he comes down here on the greatest attempt. His right knee makes contact with the turf.
And he's back standing. There was an injury for Minneapolis. Drescher was injured, so he called for injury, and as soon as a player calls an injury, whatever happens after, whatever transpires, does not count. So because of Drag'N Thrust taking an injury sub, Boston takes one as well.
Eric Stevens comes in and replaces John Hirschberger.
And Graham also took an injury too, it looks like. So Graham no longer on the field for this point. Either Minneapolis gets a turn and wins the game and advances to the finals, or Boston, after being down by 6 at 13-7, would force a universe point at 14s.
And that substitution there, Hirschberger coming out, usually along their D line. He's the one that'll pull for them most of the time for Boston. Bringing in Stevens, who they call Red Shirt. That was his nickname at his first practice. Nobody knew his name, but he was wearing a red shirt.
Nicknames have a tendency to stick like that.
Pick called.
A pick stops the play. There's Graham looking on, hoping he'll be able to take the field for a potential universe point. It's got to be killing him to be watching now on the sidelines. As a guy who's played pretty much every pivotal point for this team here in Frisco.
He looks okay as he walks, but he can't come back in.
What was the message that he talked about? All 28 players on every single point.
Good call.
And now as one of the captains of this Boston team, he has to be confident in that message.
It's been one of the longer points of the game and as many stoppages as any other point we've had. Here's a deep shot.
Boston has passed up a lot of deep opportunities. This one falls in the end zone, and there is contact.
Foul called.
Ben Faust saying he was hit in the face.
Okay. He was in front of me. I'm like, that's fine.
We'll take a look and listen in simultaneously.
Hey guys, so the call is foul. Come to the observer. Your hand was on the disc before anything else. No foul. We're here with a check. Tap the ground.
Starting with a check. Hold on. We're starting with a check.
That's right. Baran got his left hand on the disc from the backside right as Faust was getting ready to pull it in.
The eagle-eyed Stephen Hubbard, the observer on the call. And it goes back to Minnesota. A chance to win once again.
And that was perfectly called by Hubbard, as you said, because while it looked like Faust had position and it looked like he was hit near the belt or down by the legs, the defender got a hand on the disc first and knocked it away.
Here's Schron on the backside of the play. He's been the target of many a huck here in this second half that has either been a turn because of an interception or fallen incomplete. Another huck, this for the win if it stays in. And it's too long.
It was a heck of an effort, though, by Drescher.
Out the back of the end zone.
Now, this is a throw that gives the receiver a chance, but it was just too far. A little more float.
Keep in mind, Minneapolis, despite its many turnovers here in the second half, ever since taking half 8-4, still does have one timeout yet to use. Boston tried to use an extra timeout, didn't have one, and ended up being a turn.
Blanton wide open deep.
Deed away.
By her own teammate. If Eric Stevens doesn't come streaking in there, Blanton probably makes this catch. Of course, we'll never know.
Back to Drag'N Thrust.
What do you think? The male defender who had height was still a few steps away. Blanton had size on the shorter Jamie Glader.
Drescher looking long, and that's over the head of Brian Schoenrock.
Schoenrock staying down a little bit in this marathon point.
You know, Evan, I understand the hucking mentality, but at a certain point, you'd think Drag'N Thrust might slow down the offense here with game point on the line.
That was a sensational effort by Faust.
That was the 5th game point try for Drag'N Thrust. They've been unable to come up with anything.
Sometimes hucking may not be the most prudent ultimate, but it's probably the most exciting ultimate from our perspective. And the way these guys are laying out and throwing their bodies around, you know, you follow a baseball team, you might see one great diving catch in the outfield per week. Here you get 10 catches per point. Throwing the bodies around, laying out. In such a high-stakes situation. Minneapolis going for the win. Boston trying to force a universe point. The hard cap will go on after this point. If we're tied, we'll get one more. Minneapolis a point away from the championship. And again, Boston has scored 6 of the last 7. And Boston will have the disc here.
And they do have Jeff Graham on the field. He left earlier on an injury timeout, now back in.
Wants a deep shot.
Deed up and taken away by Hahn. There is a foul call.
We do have a foul call.
Observer Stephen Hubbard.
You can't have your arm up. I wasn't pushing you.
Guys, so we got foul contest, goes back, or comes to me, and to turnover, it stays. What do you want to do?
Foul.
Okay, contest, or comes to me, and I... Contested foul, goes back.
Where at the time of the throw.
Contested foul.
If he had gone to the observer, and the observer said it was a foul, it would have stayed about 15 yards from the goal line. Instead, it goes back to where Boston will need 70 yards to go. Hard to tell whether there was enough contact to merit a foul. I'm really curious what Hubbard would have ruled had they gone to him. They compromised by sending it back. That's what would happen without observers if a foul was just contested. It would go back to the original thrower with the same stall count as when he released it.
Austin dumps it back to Crockford. Now Graham near midfield.
This has primarily just been the handlers working it up the field. And a bad drop by Blanton.
That's the second drop she's had in this game. And it could prove crucial here as a score by Drag'N Thrust would win it and send them to tomorrow's finals.
Minneapolis will call its final timeout for either team.
That's their final timeout.
So many chances here for Drag'N Thrust.
We've seen what hasn't worked for Drag'N Thrust. This is going to be their 6th attempt to try for game point. They've been trying to throw it downfield, whether they're looking for James Hron or anybody else. They've got a trip to the finals on the line against either San Francisco or another team out of Boston. What do you do here if you're Minneapolis to try and win this game on offense?
Well, probably what they're saying in the huddle is we need to value the disc, which is something they haven't done as much. And valuing the disc doesn't mean you can't take the deep shot, but you want to make sure it's there. You want to give your receiver a chance to make the play. And Boston's in a spot where they know they don't want to be burned deep to end the game. So that might open up some more of the underneath cuts as they need to go about 50 yards, 55 yards for the goal, which would be the winner. Austin Lean has the disc. Nobody in Minneapolis's roster more comfortable with the disc in his hands in a big spot than Lean.
He's D'd up by Seth Crockford. This is Hron. Early on, taking the underneath throws. And pick called on the forward pass up ahead to Josh Hemish. And another turn for Minneapolis. In and out of the hands of Lee.
Sometimes taking the underneath isn't guaranteed either.
Graham with the disc. Ahead he finds Faust. End zone hammer falls incomplete. Would have tied us at 14.
No turnover.
The fans are enjoying the aggressiveness from both teams. So close.
7th game point try for Minneapolis. Going deep again. Hron lets it fly. In the end zone, Minneapolis. They've got the score. 7th try is the charm for Drag'N Thrust. They're on to the finals tomorrow.
So often it's James Hron on the receiving end, but this time a perfect floaty backhand huck to space. And a great box out, great body control. And for the first time in the team's 5-year history, Minneapolis Drag'N Thrust into the championship game here at the National Championships.
13.
Well, Evan, no question about it. Our Discraft Ultra Star player of the game comes on the longest point of the entire game with a backhand huck from James Hron.
Great float on the disc, and immediately Patty King knew it, the recipient of the game-winning score. And this a downwind throw that earlier today might have sailed out the back of the end zone. But you look at the flags now, and they are virtually motionless. And what's become a very calm afternoon helped allow that to be completed.
So a big win for Drag'N Thrust over the Ghosts of Boston. They are on to the finals tomorrow at noon. And we'll check in down on the field when we come back to Frisco, Texas.
This is the microwave shot. This is the microwave shot. This is the microwave shot. This is the microwave shot.
(15-13) Minneapolis with a win over Boston in mixed semifinal number 1 here this Saturday in Frisco, Texas at the USA Ultimate National Championships. Quite an exciting match. Mike Cousins, Evan Lepler. That last point seemingly took forever. Lots of hucks, lots of Ds, but it came down in the end, and Minneapolis got the win.
Both teams had chances. Frankly, both teams missed a bunch of opportunities too. But Drag'N Thrust, the better team for most of this game, and they're on their way to the finals.
Josh Hemis of Drag'N Thrust joining us down now on the field. And Josh, take me through that last point and what that was like for your squad going back and forth. It took 7 tries for you to finally get the score.
Yeah, that was a crazy point. It was really just a test of our energy and commitment. We've been talking all season about how we've been working harder than everybody out there, and how we're a second half team that, you know, if we can make the game go long and make a team work hard, we'll always come out on top.
Josh, what does it mean to you to be in the championship game here at Nationals for the first time in the mixed division?
That's huge. It's very huge. We've made it to the semifinals a couple of times in the last 3 years. And we've always come up just a little bit short. So to pull that out, especially with a really great Ghost team that we played today, it was just a gritty win. It's awesome.
Josh, on that last possession, was there ever any talk of changing up the strategy with so many hucks that fell incomplete?
I think we did talk about trying to swing it a lot more. They were poaching, and clearly they knew that we've been going deep all game. And so they were sitting behind with a lot of their bigger guys. And credit to their defense, because we swung it several times, and then if we didn't have a look, there were several times where our only option was to throw it up at a late stall.
How much did the wind factor into this game?
It factored in a little bit. It was a little bit gusty coming from the west side, and with the stadium, it actually proved to be a little bit interesting that the higher the disc went, you had a little bit more wind than lower.
All right, Josh, thanks so much. Congratulations.
Thank you, guys.
Josh Hemis of Minneapolis Drag'N Thrust. They get a win. They're on to the finals tomorrow at noon. And when we come back here to Frisco, we'll wrap things up from mixed semifinal game number 1. In Minneapolis with a win over Boston in mixed semifinal number 1 here this Saturday in Frisco, Texas at the USA Ultimate National Championships. Quite an exciting match. Mike Cousins, Evan Lepler. That last point seemingly took forever. Lots of hucks, lots of Ds, but it came down in the end, and Minneapolis got the win.
Both teams had chances. Frankly, both teams missed a bunch of opportunities too. But Drag'N Thrust, the better team for most of this game, and they're on their way to the finals.
Josh Hemis of Drag'N Thrust joining us down now on the field. And Josh, take me through that last point and what that was like for your squad going back and forth. It took 7 tries for you to finally get the score.
Yeah, that was a crazy point. It was really just a test of our energy and commitment. We've been talking all season about how we've been working harder than everybody out there, and how we're a second half team that, you know, if we can make the game go long and make a team work hard, we'll always come out on top.
Josh, what does it mean to you to be in the championship game here at Nationals for the first time in the mixed division?
That's huge. It's very huge. We've made it to the semifinals a couple of times in the last 3 years, and we've always come up just a little bit short. So to pull that out, especially with a really great Ghost team that we played today, it was just a gritty win. It's awesome.
Josh, on that last possession, was there ever any talk of changing up the strategy with so many hucks that fell incomplete?
I think we did talk about trying to swing it a lot more. They were poaching, and clearly they knew that we've been going deep all game. And so they were sitting behind with a lot of their bigger guys. And credit to their defense, because we swung it several times, and then if we didn't have a look, there were several times where our only option was to throw it up at a late stall.
How much did the wind factor into this game?
It factored in a little bit. It was a little bit gusty coming from the west side, and with the stadium, it actually proved to be a little bit interesting that the higher the disc went, you had a little bit more wind than lower.
All right, Josh, thanks so much. Congratulations.
Thank you guys.
Josh Hemish of Minneapolis Drag'N Thrust, they get a win. They're on to the finals tomorrow at noon. And when we come back here to Frisco, we'll wrap things up from mixed semifinal game number 1.